Okay, I think it's recording.
Yeah, I can see it.
It's done. Okay, awesome. All right, well, hi everyone. My name is Noah Bernard, and I am joined today with Dr. James Davis to talk about sleep health. Hi, James. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing well. Thank you for being here. Well, like I said, we're going to talk about sleep health today. And can you kind of give us a little background on yourself and what got you interested in sleep and pulmonary?
Yeah, so I am a pulmonary and sleep medicine specialist. I graduated from training in 2017 and I moved back here. All my family was here. Um, in training, I really liked pulmonary medicine and ICU, and that's how I got introduced to sleep. Um, a lot of patients were on ventilators and they moved to like a BiPAP or CPAP kind of machine, and that's how I started introduced. And then I decided to go into a sleep medicine fellowship instead of ICU fellowship because it was a lot easier and less stress.
Yeah, that sounds about right. I do remember working in the ICU, and it is very high stress. So, yeah, the sleep definitely sounds like a less stressful environment.
Yeah. And you can help a lot of people too. It's nice to help people get good quality sleep.
Yeah, and it plays, like we'll talk about here, it plays such a vital role in just about every part of our life. So,
Mhm.
I guess going right into that, why is sleep so important when we talk about every part of our life? Like, how does it affect everything?
hmm So I always tell patients that sleep is just as important as food and water. We need sleep in order to live. There were studies that were done a long time ago on animals, and they would sleep deprive them, and they didn't survive. And what they found was, sleep is important with our brain function and our physical health.
Okay.
Our concentration, our cognition, and our cardiovascular health.
Yeah. Okay. And then when because sleep is so important, how much sleep do we actually need? I know like we throw around numbers, or at least we hear different numbers from people or we see stuff online. What how much sleep does the average person need?
Yeah, so according to the National Sleep Foundation, adults need about 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. There are those people that need, more or less, but typically 7 to 10 hours is average.
Okay, got it. And I when it comes to getting enough sleep, is napping helpful during the day, or is that something people should be avoiding? Or where does napping fall along that line?
Yeah. So napping should be done strategically, believe it or not. And there actually is a good or right way to nap.
Okay.
So we go through different sleep cycles throughout the night, and they're typically about 60 to 90 minutes long. And so if you did need to nap during the day for whatever reason, it probably shouldn't be more than 10 to 20 minutes.
Oh,
Because
okay.
you make sure that because you want to wake up before you go too deep into the sleep cycle. So when you wake up from a nap, you should feel rested, energized. Some people, they wake up and they feel super groggy. They don't know where they are. That means they've gone too far into the sleep cycle, and they should have finished the entire cycle before waking up. And so that's why it can be, hard for people
Yeah.
to nap, or they don't like naps if you get people who have that.
Okay.
But it can be helpful, especially if you haven't gotten a good night's rest. It can be needed, but it shouldn't be a consistent thing.
Okay. Got it. And when you say obviously getting a good night's rest, but sometimes that can be challenging for everyone to get even just the 7 to 9 hours, but then making sure they actually feel rested after that. How
Mhm.
can someone improve that overall quality of their sleep? Are there some things to do to help make that feel more restful?
Yeah, so there are certain behaviors that we can do that help promote good quality sleep, and they're called sleep hygiene. So things like avoiding naps during the day, having a consistent bedtime and wake time,
Mhm.
avoiding screens like your cell phones or computer, TV, making sure that your bedroom environment's cool, calm, relaxed. Um, and making sure that your bed is only for the two S's, sleep and sex.
Yes.
Um, and if you wake up in the middle of the night, get out of bed and go back to bed when you're sleepy. And then making sure that you have this consistent sleep schedule, even on your days off. You don't want to be
Yeah.
sleeping in too late.
Okay. And I think that's something a lot of us will sometimes do on the weekends. We think, oh, great,
Mhm.
I don't have to set my alarm in the morning. And so
Yeah.
really, if you're someone who's waking up, let's say you're a really early riser at like 4:30, 5 o'clock, you should be trying to kind of keep that same momentum through the weekend if possible, or something close
Yeah.
to it. Okay.
I would say half hour is good, but nothing more than an hour for sure.
Got it. Okay. And I know for myself, I worked night shift for about 5 years. And so keeping that consistent schedule was very challenging. And there would be nights where if I had one day off, I would pick up a shift at work just to stay on my sleep schedule because I was sleeping a lot better. What advice do you have for someone who maybe doesn't have that ability to do, or someone who's flipping around back and forth? Is there anything that you do?
Yeah, so shift work is difficult to treat. The main treatment is to not do shift work. And unfortunately, people have, livelihoods they have to, make, and it's hard to do.
Yeah.
So the main thing would be try and be as consistent as possible. Like you said, on your days off, you have to keep that same schedule.
Mhm.
And then with the sleep that you are getting, you want to make sure it is good quality. So following those sleep hygiene techniques and things like that. And then you also want to make sure that you don't have any underlying sleep disorder like sleep apnea that's messing with your sleep.
Okay. And with your line of work, when it comes to sleep apnea or anything like insomnia and the things that you look for, what are you commonly seeing a lot of, or things that people could be aware of that they may not even know that they have, like when it comes to that or snoring or how those all kind of play together?
Yeah. So the most common patient I get are husbands coming in because their partners hear them snoring or stop breathing at night.
Yeah.
So snoring is the biggest complaint, or just feeling tired during the day is another one.
Okay.
So snoring is different from sleep apnea. So snoring is vibration of the tissues in the upper airway. Generally not a major issue other than just the noise, but snoring is linked to sleep apnea. So sleep apnea is where that is linked to cardiovascular disease, heart attacks, stroke, arrhythmia, daytime dysfunction, fatigue, and sleepiness. So that's when snoring becomes a problem because it's linked to sleep apnea.
Right. Okay. Great. And so if someone wants to have that evaluated or checked, they just consult with their primary provider and say, hey, I would like to have my sleep looked at, or can they just even go themselves?
Yeah, so I think the first thing I would do is check with your insurance to see if you do need a referral to a sleep specialist. If not, then I would just get on Google and then search for a sleep center, and then get in for a consultation for testing.
Awesome. Okay, great. And when they do the testing, is it usually like a one-night deal, or do they try to test as many days as possible, or just whatever insurance basically will allow?
Yeah, so typically there are two kinds of sleep studies. There's one in a sleep center, which is gold standard, very accurate. But the problem is you have to sleep that night, so it may be difficult to have all the wires and things on you to sleep. The alternative is a home sleep study. These are more commonly done. They're done in your own bed. They're comfortable. And insurance does typically only cover just the home sleep study first. Now, one night on a home sleep test or on a sleep study is good enough usually. If needed, you can do another one. But in general, I rarely have to do more than one night for patients.
Oh, that's good. Okay. Well, awesome. And I guess when you were mentioning how it's typically husbands are coming in because their partner is saying that they're hearing them snore or stop breathing, when it comes to those in a relationship having to share a sleeping environment, and let's say they have two very different either sleep cycles or sleep preferences, whether it's one is hot, one is cold, what are some things you can recommend to kind of help get some balance and make sure that both parties sleep well if they don't have the option of having a spare bedroom?
Yeah, so good question. So there's a term called sleep divorce where couples actually don't sleep in the same bed or even the same room. And it's actually very common as we get older, just because people are wanting to make sure that they do have, or get good quality sleep. But it also can be tough. I get couples that want to be able to sleep in the same room or together. I have patients that will start together and then they'll, one will leave halfway through the night. So it really sort of depends on a conversation between the couple. But some things would be maybe having two beds that are close together. That way one's not disturbing the other when moving. Some partners will wear earplugs if the snoring is really bad. Some people will use the CPAP machines, again, because of the snoring and the sleep apnea. But I think it's a conversation between the couple, and it is very difficult. But in the end, if you're not getting good quality sleep, sleeping with your partner, maybe making a compromise and figure out how to get that, whether it's, separate beds or separate rooms or things
Right.
like that. But it is a difficult question, and there's really no right or wrong.
Yeah, it's kind of just figuring out what will end up working for them in the long run and getting them both a good sleep. That's good. And I guess when it comes to overall sleep health, like how it affects our overall health and also how it affects us with aging and our hormones and that process, where does that kind of fall into, like, are people as we age getting worse sleep, or is it just, because we're aging, it gets worse?
Yeah. So in general, sleep is tied to, like I said before, lots of things in the body, our brain function, our physical health, hormone balance. So as we get older, we lose things like testosterone and growth hormone. And so we want to make sure that we're getting good quality sleep to make sure that those stay normal. With women, when they hit menopause, that's when insomnia can worsen. Insomnia is linked to menopause. And so making sure that you get good quality sleep so these hormones aren't affected.
Right.
Melatonin levels, melatonin is our sleep hormone. And so that can sometimes, change as we get older. Cortisol is another big hormone. It's our stress hormone. If we're not getting good quality sleep, we have more levels of cortisol, which affects our immunity and our other systems of the body. But yeah, so I think, as you get older, it's more important to get good quality sleep or stay consistent to making sure that we maintain our sleep health.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then one more thing I was going to mention. As we get older, our sleep architecture does change. So it is natural for us to wake up more during the nighttime, and that's just a part of our aging. And then as we get older, we do tend to fall asleep a little bit earlier and wake up earlier. So our circadian rhythm actually will change as we get older.
Gotcha. And I feel like I noticed that, especially when I was working inpatient with a lot of like geriatric populations, like they would be falling asleep sooner, and they'd be waking up before the next shift even got there and wonder why I was still there. And I was like, well, you slept already. And, so yeah, I do feel like I noticed that. And I was like, oh, is that, because like obviously I didn't study sleep, and it's not something that I really had to focus on too much for what I was doing with patients, but
yeah,
it makes a lot of sense. And then I guess for people who are traveling a lot, I think you had mentioned this before when we were talking a while back. If you're traveling or someone who has to travel for work and you're jumping between time zones, how is the best way to kind of manage that? So, you're either avoiding jet lag or at least minimizing the effects that you feel.
Yeah. So that's difficult also, but probably some tips you could do it when you get to your destination, just making sure that you're sort of assimilating into that time zone. So making sure you're exposing yourself to sunlight and being active. And especially when it's the morning time, you want to make sure you're getting that sunlight in the morning, because that will help you fall asleep or adjust to that time zone. But if you're kind of going back and forth and it's hard to keep track of all of that, you may want to do like a short-term, sleep aid if you really need it to, to function. I don't like sleep aids, but then again, if you're needing it for your job for that travel time, it may be helpful. But it's sort of kind of forcing yourself to simulate into that time zone and really exposing yourself to sunlight in the morning time and daytime.
Okay. And that's basically, I guess, not how we trick our brain, but educate our brain to be like, hey, now's the time to be functioning and more active.
Yeah.
So
the sunlight, it helps sort of, we call it entrain our circadian rhythm. So your internal clock will adjust according to the sun.
Oh, awesome. Okay. Well, that's good. And what are some myths or red flags that you've heard of sleep, or like in your line of work, that people will come to you and say like, oh, I thought I could do this, or, I do this, or they're doing these habits before bed that just make you cringe, and you have to tell people like, please stop doing that?
Yeah, so there's a lot. So snoring is a big one. People think that snoring is just noise, but it can be linked to sleep apnea. When I hear people say that they don't sleep for days, that's a big one. They definitely need to get evaluated. They're awake for days and then they crash. That's a problem. Falling asleep driving, I've seen that before. That's a big issue. You definitely got to get, tested for that. You're at risk for yourself and other people. people that have, TVs in their room and they're, they need the TV to fall asleep, or on their phones to fall asleep.
Yeah.
That's kind of doing the opposite. Or if I hear people needing to drink alcohol before to go to bed to fall asleep, that's a big one.
Okay.
So there's a few that kind of, get me interested in making sure that they get tested or at least evaluated thoroughly.
Yeah, because I know I've met people who like to fall asleep, and I feel like I hear it every so often. Someone will say like, "I love falling asleep with the TV and background noise." Is that so? Like, is that, I don't know if maybe that's their version of the white noise or ambient sounds that people like to play. But so just
well, it all kind of has to do with our conditioning. So our minds are very powerful. So we condition certain things to sleep. So if you do this one thing, then you'll fall asleep. And so it may be helpful if the TV is used to help you fall asleep, great, keep doing it. But then if you're still tired the next morning or you feel like you're not getting good quality sleep, then that actually may be, hurting you than helping.
Okay. Well,
and yes, and kind of along those lines, it's people also tend to think that going to bed earlier will help them sleep longer and get more hours of sleep. That's another thing. Sleeping in or going to bed too early can actually make things worse.
Oh, really? Interesting. Well, as far as when we are getting to bed or in the process of winding down for the day, is there anything you recommend to people or maybe that you do yourself to kind of help get you into that mindset of like, the day's ending, I'm done with the majority of my major tasks. It's time to kind of wind down for the evening. What are some things you recommend or that you've done in your own life that have helped you?
Yeah, so good question. I would say probably maybe sort of set a time where you want to wind down. So it's like 8 o'clock now. It's time to sort of relax. So you want to kind of have the lights dim, so no bright lights. Same thing with like your TV screens or your phone screen. Keep it kind of or dim. Some people take showers or do like their nighttime skin routine kind of thing.
Yeah.
Some people kind of read to relax, and then eventually go into bed. And you want to make sure that bed is only for sleep and for sex. So no screens in bed, no TVs in bed, that kind of thing.
Right.
And you want to avoid, sugary foods, caffeine, alcohol before bed, that kind of thing. And what else? If you try to fall asleep, and you're still awake after about 20 minutes without looking at the clock, then you have to get out of bed and then wait until you're sleepy again.
Yeah.
Those are sort of a mixture of like sleep hygiene and mindset things that I do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes total sense. And I think that's something I know I forget about a lot is sometimes I will go to bed at my usual time and then it'll be 20, 30 minutes. And I'm like, am I still awake? And so I do forget to get out of bed and go do something that's very like calm and not too like mind distracting or engaging, just something more remedial. And so I'll forget that and I'll lay in bed for another 20 or 30 minutes and think I can just go back to sleep and it doesn't happen. And then it's sometimes it'll be midnight and I'm like, cool, what just happened?
Yeah. And then you're frustrated and that can worsen sleep, insomnia. So but having your routine is nice. And then if routine's not working, that's sort of a sign that you need to get it evaluated, especially if you're really having a hard time during the day.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. Well, awesome. I think that covers just about everything, James. Is there anything else or any topics or things that maybe we missed or that people could, take from this conversation or that in general, to summarize, just, sleep is great. Make sure you're getting plenty of it. And if you don't feel like you are, talk to your doctor about it.
Yeah. So I said in the beginning, sleep is just as important as food and water, but we as a human species, we can put off sleep. And so we really do sacrifice good quality sleep, and it affects all of our health, our cognitive function, our cardiovascular function, everything, hormones, everything. If you are struggling with sleep and you are really having a hard time during the day, definitely get in for an evaluation because it can really help. Just with everything, your physical health, your brain health, your mood, everything. And everyone deserves to have good quality sleep.
Definitely. Well, James, thank you so much again for joining me and talking about sleep and all the benefits and everything that you do. So thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. Thank you for having me and Happy New Year's.
Happy New Year to you too. And I will link all of your socials, your business and everything in the caption or comments below, just so people can check you out, or if they're in the Phoenix area, they can maybe even come and see you and have a little conversation face to face.
Yeah, I love that.
Awesome. All right. Thanks, James. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.